Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here on a Wednesday night and joining me for this performance. Maybe just quickly introduce myself and say a little bit about what I'm doing tonight. My name is Daryl Lim. I'm a poet. I'm a writer from Singapore. And with me on stage is Dave Lim, who is a visual artist and photographer, filmmaker, and also coincidentally my brother. And Dave and I have come together to collaborate to bring you this performance. And the way I would say this is the performance is centered on this book that I published about 3 years ago called Anything But Human. And it's a collection of poetry. And maybe the way to talk about this book of poems is that I was trying to figure out how to write poetry at a time when the world seemed to be ending, or when forces that were unleashed in the world seemed to be coming to a head. Strangely enough, it was mostly written before the pandemic, and so to me, it kind of prophesied the oncoming of the pandemic, maybe. And so I was trying to write my way out of this sense of exhaustion and sense of difficulty of writing poetry as an act, and this book in some ways deals with that. Trying to scavenge, I think, meaning from the landscape that we now inhabit. Coincidentally, I think Dave also discovered some photographic slides that were going to be consigned to rubbish, and he rescued them from oblivion. And these are photographs of architectural buildings and things like that. And so what we've come together now is, what you will see and what we will do is an interpretation of my poetry, and he has interpreted them through the visuals, through, in some ways, warping and morphing these architectural visuals. It's something a bit experimental, something a little bit new to both of us. So let's just see how it goes. Okay. All right, so here goes. I'm going to start reading from a sequence called Fly Forgotten as a Dream, and you can think of them as, in some ways, nightmarish dreamscapes and landscapes. Fly forgotten as a dream. Entirely within expectations, the pigeons aggregate to an unkindness. What was dead air insinuates itself into a cyclone. Scrunched up tissues fall like snow on grass. There are stretches of walkway still in receipt of sunlight. We walk in circles until we reach the earth's squalid core. You ask me, what is the significance of drink cans floating in the water? What is the import of the frangipani blooming without an audience? The water is ruddy with public opinion. On the feedback form, I shade in cells of my own invention. Fly Forgotten as a Dream 2. We wake up with fifth generation antibiotics in our mouths. My skin is scaly with the pieties of the past. Everything we do is terribly ill-advised. Just yesterday, you brought home a pack of sickly biscuits. They taste deeply of the amnesia we've grown to love and cherish. I chance upon an old photograph of people eating around a banquet table. There is a suckling pig with cherries in its eyes. I find another photo of almost the same scene, but the pig has my eyes. The rain beats on my window with great urgency. At night, the bed is hot with the suspicion of meaning. I just realized I can't really see what's back there. So I hope you're enjoying the show, because you're seeing something and an interpretation that I can't see with my own eyes. Fly Forgotten as a Dream, Part 3. Making tea I immediately gasp from the poor's intense malevolence. The screens are pregnant with the most arcane hieroglyphs. Entire departments are consumed by a virus loose from a dead developer's archive. That cupboard hasn't been opened since 1993. Tiny black ants emerge endlessly from under the carpet, like rioters scattered by tear gas. The head of department lies comatose, his nose sunk in a tin of crumbling biscuits. Always faint weeping in the background. New procedures and guidelines reproduce themselves with considerable ecstasy. A bird of prey smashes itself against the window and becomes a butterfly. I hold some water in my hand and listen intently to its remembrances of salt. Okay, so that was the first 3 poems. I would say that as I... Thank you. Thank you, claps. As I would say that as I wrote this sequence, I think I was very much haunted by this sense of the world as a wasteland, but specifically this sense of the world as a rubbish dump. The sense that the world was becoming more and more filled with trash, and trash not of just the physical, detritus, physical kind, but also trash of the mental kind on the internet, on social media. Ever more, I think we are just clogged more and more with trash. And in some ways, these sequences come out of that realization of that state of utter rubbish. Fly Forgotten as a Dream, Part 4. Learning to love is cheap photocopy. New idiolects crystallize like jaggery on my tongue. Sleep, when it comes, is richly marbled and melts on my forehead. The cough caught in my throat flowers into a bulbous alien fruit. My notes say I last spoke my name 8 years ago. The blue fog unbuttons my shirt and leaves me parched by the roadside. I look in the mirror and see a pair of dice for eyes. My hair falls in filthy, bloodied clumps. Learning to love is cheap photocopy. Outside, the hammer joins metal to more unwilling metal. Fly Forgotten as a Dream, Part 5. Of course, there will be a revolution. For this month only, the temple does exorcisms at half price. The men set up their stalls and bond over counterfeit aphrodisiacs. This page of the menu encodes the highest mysteries of the universe. The other side shows they are out of Sichuan peppercorns and century egg. A crab crawls out of the boiling broth and becomes the commissioner of police. I fumble in my pockets for a knife and come up with a supermarket voucher from the 1990s. A man with no ears serves me a dark soup, thick with viscera. There are drugs in my head, lungs, arms, nose, stomach, large intestine, ankle, Adam's apple, and heart. Part 6. This is the playground of our nightmares. We dig and dig into the sand rich with flies and turn up some shiny, smooth disk of unknown purpose and origin. A man with no mouth is in the distance, his hands fused into a symbol of casual anarchy. We continue to dig. The sun shines smugly on the disc, revealing indecipherable writing. The man with no mouth says, "Tell me, dumplings, what the lines on my palm say about the next financial crisis, about the plausibility of total revolution, about our progress in breeding boneless chickens." We look at our own dirty palms and see our purple swelling faces. Ignoring our protests, the man sets fire to his collection of canned meats. The screams reach the next convenient suburb. And this is the last poem of this sequence, Fly Forgotten as a Dream, Part 7. The land is furrowed deep with worry. The angsana trees are turning orange with pain. Mute cliffs, between the sharp mute cliffs, settles an angry mist. Your face reminds me of a pile of bone-dry kindling. Plastic bottles strewn about us reflect your healthy nuclear glow. The dust in the air is what's left of the last civilization that went mad. I have no answers to any of the questions that you had asked. The forest teems with gossip about the new junior minister for agriculture. In the background, sirens herald the arrival of a new age of deliciousness. You tell me to take out my microwavable meal and start the picnic. So that was the end of the first sequence of poems I'm going to read, the Fly Forgotten as a Dream sequence. And the next sequence I'm going to read is called Narrative. And these come from the second part of my book. And if you think about the first part of the book, where this Fly Forgotten as a Dream sequence comes from, as writing myself to a progressive, and you might sense it in my readings, in the progressive sense of despair and exhaustion. In these narrative poems, I try to write myself out of them by trying to write much more simply, trying to pose riddles to myself. In some ways, I am playing with the very idea of writing itself. And so these poems try to interrogate that. And these are the narrative poems. And actually, I remember writing these when I was in this residency in Italy. I was stuck in this hillside. There was absolutely nothing to do. And yet I only wrote, I think, maybe 4 lines a day for the entirety of the residency. And I just spent so much time rewriting those 4 lines a day in that day. And yet, I think that was the genesis of this book, because even though those 4 lines were all I produced in one day, I think they formed the germ and the seed of this book, because they marked a radical shift in the direction of my writing. So I'm very thankful for that residency and being away from everything. And it tells you that, and these poems kind of demonstrate that point, that you don't need a lot to achieve what poetry is meant to achieve. Okay, so having talked about that, let's start the first poem. Narrative 1. There are days when everything I say should be recorded in water. Days when I'm brought to tears by the retch and gurgle of water pipes. Other days, the slightest beauty raises through me like a forest fire. Today, nothing but the sound of rain smothering my weeping. Narrative Part 2. Before I pee on them, I ask the insects for permission. If you look closely, the bushes are growing plastic packaging. Narrative 3. I am an abandoned building with the alarms going off constantly. Stories come to me missing beginnings and stairwells. Death is an extreme inconvenience I'll try to work around. Narrative 4. I take a nap of exactly 43 seconds. Waking up my lips mouth designer brands. The mirror on the wall reflects the same wallpaper it obscures. Narrative 5. A single ice cube, please, with a pint of opioid-rich blood. Is it me, or does the bartender have mothball eyes? Narrative 6. I have let the silence well up for years, and now it flavors everything. A light drizzle can lead to a change in government. Narrative 7. The cat is a dog, is a porcupine, is a school of electric tilapia, is a warm slice of apple pie. Truth floats down the river, dozing, and we smother her with roses. Narrative 8. When I use words like undertow, I imagine mercury purling on my tongue. This much talk has made me hungrier than a tick on a teddy bear. Narrative 9. This poem is behaving as it should because you are reading it. Otherwise, it is usually all over the place. Narrative 10. There are many places where fruit is never plucked. They fall, rot, and feed another generation of unwanted fruit. Narrative 11. The night sky has been emptied of the old constellations and is available for advertising. So that brings me to the end of the narrative sequence. I have maybe 2 more poems to read, one a shorter one and one a longer one. And I will say maybe something about, and I'll read them back to back, I won't pause. I'll say something about the longer poem. The longer poem is this poem called Credo, and credo in Latin means I believe. And this poem, some of you may have heard this story many times, but this poem comes from a challenge by my friend Larry Yipil, the Filipino poet, who's a good friend. And Larry challenged me to write a long poem, because if you read my poems, generally they tend to be quite short. I really kind of struggle to go beyond 1 page. I find it very difficult. I think maybe this reflects our age of distraction. But so Larry said, your manuscript is good. You need to write a poem that is longer than 1 page. You need to dedicate yourself to this, and this will make your manuscript, make your book. So I said, all right, Larry. And Larry is also a lecturer in creative writing. So, I mean, of course, I listened to him as a good Singaporean student. I listened to him. I basically locked myself up in a room for like hours. There were no fluids. I was parched, thirsty, dying. And I wrote the poem after locking myself up in the room. I mean, this is a dramatized telling of the story. I mean, but basically that's what happened. And so I finally wrote this long poem, which you will hear in a bit. And in a way, the long poem kind of undercuts the rest of my book, by saying that, because after you read these poems, you're kind of asking, okay, the poet says all these things, his wordplay is clever, it's inventive, but what does he believe in? What does he stand for? And this poem tries to tell you what I stand for, but not really, of course, in the way of poetry. But before that, I'll read this other poem called Age of Miracles. Age of Miracles. terror ate our gut flora, while the post office suspended habeas corpus. I have waited 50 years for running water and aerosol cheese. Before our Lord I deigned to perspire, the clouds bubbled with chlorine, the angel spoke of bulk discounts, the light shaved 10 pounds off my wrist. I came back to the earth with a new calendar, the months named after nerve agents. Sorry, I tried to reach you with outdated technology. Forgive me. Okay, so this is Credo. Maybe just one note that this is a slightly more family-friendly version, considering the context in which we are in. If you want the less family-friendly version, you can buy the book. Okay, here we go. Credo. I believe in the slipperiness of mornings and the scent of freshly mown man. I believe in the freezer section, that bulwark value pack upon value pack of Japanese crispy chicken with seaweed. I believe in the glorious, heaving, finely muscled state who sets aside designated ash scattering lanes lined with a bit of pebbles which allow the ashes to percolate into the soil beneath. I believe in the air fryer. I believe in a God who doesn't know what he is doing. I believe in the Epipremnium aureum, the ubiquitous money plant, the devil's ivy, which refuses to flower but grows recklessly, relentlessly, a strangling creeper which will one day inherit our sodden, vacant world. I believe in the dead and their silences. I believe in the purity of hate. I believe in plastic, the sword that encases your heart and protects it from living. I believe when at last we are in paradise, it will still be possible to feel ennui. I believe in lust that keeps you awake looking for new styles of rattan furniture. And especially so now, I believe in air conditioning. I believe in shopping centers where you may glimpse a version of yourself in a far-off mirror, wearing Polo Ralph Lauren, 3 kids in tow. I believe in, this is maybe a bad season to say it, I believe in pork, the forbidden flesh, the greasy, crispy crackling, perhaps so forbidden because so akin to man. I believe in not brushing my teeth to let the wretchedness really sink in. I believe beauty is a searing knife. I believe in globalization that washes up 28 brands of lingerie. I believe in clavicles and cheekbones. I believe in fakes. I believe in the fakeness that burrows in your brain, spawning maggots of fake, which eat your body and metamorphose you into a factory of fake, high-grade radioactive fake, a pus-filled lake of fake. I believe in monosodium glutamate. I believe that death is the body's reversion to normal. I believe in silencing myself before they silence me. I believe in this land of perpetual discounts. I believe the old live on to tell us lies. I believe in the blank terror that leaves me gasping for air. I believe in the sun that will evermore envelop us until it finally hatches itself. I believe in the word that chews me and glues me back. I believe in the mute certainty of obliteration. I believe in the body's slow consumption of itself. I believe we may be the dream of an alien janitor. I believe in love. I believe in the program that will resurrect us almost perfectly. I believe that time may be a collective delusion. I believe that time might be intergalactic currency. I believe that time is running out. There was too much of it anyway. And as the handsome bot on my Facebook feed says to me, time is like a pig knife. Good night. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I think we'll do another repeat performance, maybe with different poems, different themes, but largely the same set list at 8 p.m. Thank you very much for being here.